I guess all it takes is for me to just tell people I have large amounts of cash and they'll believe it. Well, at least until they want to go to an expensive dinner and I have to foot the bill. Well, Inventing Anna is a new Netflix limited series from Shonda Rhimes starring Julia Garner. Is this one going to be on your weekend binge list? A journalist with a lot to prove investigates the case of Anna Delvey, the Instagram legendary German heiress who stole the hearts of New York's social scene and stole their money as well. But is Anna New York's biggest con woman, or is she simply the new portrait of the American dream? This has been an interesting year for these types of stories. We've had two documentaries on Netflix with The Puppet Master and then The Tinder Swindler. And now there's Inventing Anna, about someone who sucks in those around them to sieve large amounts of money from those in their wake. This series is based on the New York Magazine article How Anna Delvey Tricked New York's Party People by Jessica Pressler. And right from the very beginning of the first episode, and then at the start of each subsequent episode, creatively placed text reminds the audience that, quote, this whole story is completely true, except for the parts that are totally made up. I love that this instantly sets the stage that while some of this is based on fact, portions could be entirely fiction. And I think that's important to know as you navigate this fairly long limited series. We're taken on a journey of discovery, just like all of the characters who come into contact with Anna Delvey are. There's a mystery built into this scandalous drama, and at the center is always the question, who is Anna Delvey? Julia Garner plays Anna, and she pretty much disappears into the role. The accent that she uses is a bit muddled, creating some weird hybrid of Russian and German with sometimes a hint of a southern twang. And while this is odd to hear and it takes some getting used to, it actually is fairly close to some of the audio interviews that I heard from the real Anna. But there are times where all I could hear was Gru from Despicable Me speaking. But even through some of that oddity, Garner is wonderful in the role. She's able to create a character who is sympathetic at times and sociopathic in others. I never really knew what to trust, and even when the facts seemed to be glaring me right in the eye, Garner's portrayal could elicit some softness from me, and then I just felt manipulated, like many within the story. Anna Chlumsky plays reporter Vivian, who first uncovers the story of Anna. Vivian is based on real-life reporter and author Jessica Pressler. Now for me, as good as Garner is in her role, Chlumsky steals the show. She's incredibly dynamic, sometimes frustrating. She's brash, naive, trusting, and then wickedly fierce. And she's the real driver of this narrative, even though we watch the story play out as it surrounds Garner's Anna. There are a few other standouts as well in this with Alexis Floyd, Katie Lowes, and Laverne Cox. And they play friends of Anna, and we get to see a ton of emotional roller coaster carnage that comes from just being friends with Anna. They each approach their characters really differently, which I think is needed, and then that dynamic becomes very complex and explosive. Each episode in this show tells a portion of the story from a different perspective, focusing on a certain character's relationship with Anna, and then the ensuing interviews with Vivian as she's writing the story. And I loved how much background and development that this provides on characters. But this also can cause a problem if you don't like one of the characters. I mean, especially if they become the focus of an episode. Each of the 9 episodes in this limited series is about an hour, with some of them being a bit more than an hour, so it's a massive time commitment if you're going to binge it. Now, I took 3 days to go through the show, and that's not because it wasn't riveting content. I just needed to give myself a break from watching the excess that is displayed. As part of the story, Anna ingratiates herself into the glitterati of New York, and portions of this are pretty eye-opening and then sickening at how the money flows. There's a portion of one storyline that shows how the assumption of money amongst all the rich is all that is needed to make money flow, whether that's in purchasing or acquiring. But the show does a good job of then contrasting this with more of the regular people who aren't rich and don't hang out in those circles, and then the difficult time that they have in securing any type of financing. The small social commentary is powerful, but it's not preachy. The storytelling in this is very compelling as more and more of Anna's tale is unraveled. But even with how compelling it is, the show is a bit long, and I felt the time more than once, and that's even when I wasn't binging the entire series in one sitting. There is so much information that is given to us, and it's important to give us insight and color on Anna, but characters and sequences that are very present at the beginning of the series are noticeably absent in the latter half. And there are also portions where it feels like Vivian and Anna are just going around in circles with the information, and in these moments the forward progression is stalled. I think this becomes most evident in the last 2 episodes. The pace, urgency, and even tone of the show slows way down and changes so that it almost feels like they were written by a totally different set of people who weren't associated with the previous 7 episodes. Now, I'm not saying these were bad episodes, but they certainly took on a different mood. The soundtrack in this is excellent, typically with upbeat and driving songs. And now I'm not familiar with most of them. I do think that they're probably very popular songs that chances are you're going to recognize. Now, I really enjoyed the camera work and then the editing of the series. There are a wide variety of shots and angles that help to keep it visually engaging, but also to draw our eyes and then help shape our emotions. The scenes are cut together in ways that give urgency at the right moments, but also then they create moments of levity between characters. And this is especially evident within the group of reporters that Vivian sits with at her magazine. They're the more seasoned veterans who've been relegated to the back of the newsroom, almost set out to pasture. But the wisdom and laughs that they provide, I think, are a great addition to the story. They also really help to shape and guide the narrative of Vivian investigating Anna's story. When the story focuses on them, the editing highlights how quick witted they are, and then it bounces back and forth between the exchanges to maximize the dialogue's impact. This story can be very engaging and even anxiety inducing. There's one episode where it focuses on Anna's friend Rachel and a trip that they take. This particular episode was frightening and tense. The musical score works to just agitate and then increase our heartbeat with this drumbeat that grows in intensity but never becomes overpowering. And the situation itself that the characters find themselves in, it was causing me to hold my breath through a lot of it. This might be the worst and best episode of the show. Now, worst because of how distressed it made me, and then best for that exact same reason. Now, as the story is told for us and then approaches the climax, there's a shift in tone that I'm not sure is going to resonate with everybody. The way Anna is characterized and shown through the majority of the show changes towards the end, and in some ways it makes it a bit off-putting. But that being said, some of the characters around her bring the story full circle, showing how charismatic and influential Anna really is. So overall, Inventing Anna is an engaging drama with some incredible acting from stars Julia Garner and Anna Chlumsky. This real-life tale provides a ton of insight into the infamous Anna Delvey and her schemings that allowed her to use those around her for their incredible wealth and also built companies out of thousands of dollars. But because there is so much information, the show does run into some pacing issues where the story doesn't always use the time efficiently, allowing portions to stall in repetition. The filmmaking is wonderful to look at, with plenty of visual interest and some editing that creates captivating sequences of dialogue exchange. This isn't meant to be an uplifting watching experience, but because the story is so rich with detail and the characters are so well developed, it's hard not to become captivated by the almost unbelievable tale that's being told to us. This was an incredible story to experience, and if you choose to watch, I think you're going to be drawn in, intrigued, and then even disgusted all at the same time. There's sex, no nudity, a massive amount of profanity, and not really any violence. I give Inventing Anna 4.5 out of 5 couches. What are you watching this weekend? I'd love to know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.